The rumors of Cemetery Island have swirled for years, but as flowing waters increasingly degrade its shoreline, this isolated cemetery risks being lost forever. Determined to map the cemetery before erosion causes it to subside beneath the murky depths, I took advantage of a cobalt blue autumn day ahead of winter's diminishing daylight. My maps were incomplete, and I was forced to rely on local folks to show me the way. Rocky outcroppings presented hazards below the surface, and copperheads awaited me on the far shore, but nothing would keep me from Cemetery Island. With my bright red kayak packed securely for a drive along backwood country roads, I arrived at my launch point slightly before daybreak. When exploring long-forgotten cemeteries, I often find a local diner is my best information resource.
Here we go, sir.
Folklore passed down from parents to children cause stories to take on lives of their own, and old men eating their breakfasts are willing to share their stories of local cemeteries. Cemeteries, obscured by overgrowth or located in the middle of a vast stretch of water, can often be found by following the pointed, outstretched, gnarled finger of a 90-year-old whose great-great-grandfather was the first man buried in a cemetery in a time where caskets were carried by horse-drawn carriages. In the early part of last century, the Tennessee Valley Authority built a system of dams to provide electricity to the burgeoning industries along the Tennessee River. As waters rose, communities were displaced. TVA displayed appropriate cultural sensitivity and moved more than 500 cemeteries. However, cemeteries above the floodplain remained in their original locations. I paddled easily across the surface, following the map a man had carefully drawn for me on an unused breakfast napkin. Pass an island with a comma-shaped hook and keep left of the long, skinny island in the distance. The map wasn't drawn to scale, but it was accurate in its description of surrounding islands. As I paddled, my thoughts were on the generations of family members that traveled the hilly trails below me decades before dams caused the waters to rise. Through 100-degree summer heat and sub-freezing winter temperatures, they traveled to bury mothers and fathers and infant children that died in childbirth. My paddling seemed solemn in sympathy of their footsteps. Cemetery Island came into view, and I double-checked the roughly drawn map. Waters shallowed and soon my kayak ran aground atop rip-rap submerged by TVA workers in an attempt to prevent erosion's unending assault from destroying the island permanently. According to legend, all tombstones had been removed, leaving sunken grave sites as the only indication of a cemetery inhabiting the ground. To my surprise, I found 2 standing tombstones and a further 2 more carved stones that were felled by water-soaked terrain. One large grave site was apparent by sunken ground, and several innocuous field stones likely marked the position of otherwise undocumented grave plots. Cemetery Island is largely overgrown with vines and vegetation. Thick, matted spider webs catch millions of mosquitoes born out of the still waters entrapped by exposed tree roots. With the sun now approaching its zenith, I was aware of the possibility of copperheads and water moccasins sunning themselves to warm their cold-blooded natures. But my biggest fright came when I unknowingly startled a blue heron, and it vocalized heavily as its 6-foot wingspan lifted it into the autumn sky above Cemetery Island. I left Cemetery Island as I found it, taking only photographs and video to share with the local folks back at the diner. Most of them had never visited the island, but now had a first-hand account of the cemetery in which their ancestors are buried.